choose the change in your life, man. Change is inevitable, but change can be so satisfying if you do it with intention. Welcome to Build with Rob. It is your boy Rob Dyrdek, living life to the fullest in a harmonious, high quality way. Way up here in the Dyrdek machine in Beverly Hills, California. Man, it feels good. Feels good when they come together. Feels good when you can get out a bar and a half and the whole thing rhymes and connects together. It's not often, but I do have a gift of freestyle singing that I had considered taking to TikTok full time. But of course, that'd be too much time and energy for me. So it was just a quick fantasy that I bailed on and presented to you, my beloved podcast listeners, on this episode of Build with Rob. Look, as you know, this show is all about ideas connected to the core philosophy of you are this living machine, and if you think and live with a machine mindset in such a way that you look at yourself as this fully interconnected system, and you design, automate, and optimize all aspects of your system, that you can create this beautiful, effortless, intuitive, amazing existence. In part of that, as I preach over and over, is continual evolution, right? Like you're evolving, the world's evolving around you. Things are, regardless of what type of systems you have and plans you have in place, that everything is constantly evolving and changing at all times, And for me, the word change is this thing that we all almost look at like, hey, things are changing, this changed out of nowhere, things are always changing. We're always looking at change as like this reactive type of thing that we have to always kind of deal with, and the truth is like we can make the change. We can be the change, you know what I mean? We can guide the change in our lives. And I've been thinking a lot about sort of the difference between, sort of understanding and seeing the things that I need to change in my life and the things that I ignored and did not attempt to change them till it was too late, and then I was forced to change them. And just sort of that huge difference between sort of intentional change and forced change. And forced change is always painful and unexpected and ends up putting you in a place of being reactive, and depending on the scale of that change, it is could be quite disruptive to your life, and on the other hand, creating change and being the change and guiding the change, where you ultimately are looking and assessing your life of what can I change to make better, and then intentionally driving that change, and then allowing that change to go through a process that helps you to get to a better future present state, a more high quality life, if you will, requires, looking at all aspects of your life through that lens on a continual basis, I harp on it a lot, on this idea that you are, this living system that's continuing to grow and evolve and change while the world is growing and evolving and changing around you. But it's so important to constantly be looking at the things that you can change, that can make your life better, and in some things, big things that seem totally out of your control, as it relates to changes in your life, more often than not, you could see coming. You know what I mean? If the company you work for goes out of business, like the odds are, like you had some insight to whether or not, you had job security, and that there would be some sort of moment in time where you would potentially be forced to make a dramatic change in your life and trying to find a new place to work. It's not like, you know, everything that happens, even in a bigger change, that you don't have some sort of insight to, in some type of understanding. And it doesn't mean that that's not going to, be painful, but it's the idea that you could have, at least understood and began to look at what your options may be if something like that were to occur. And that would be getting out in front of a bigger change. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes, you want to be able to see something like that, get out in front of it, and guess what? It would be deeply satisfying for you if you felt it. You began to look at other opportunities, like went and found another opportunity, and then it went out of business, and now you're going through your new job and your new opportunity. You'd be like, wow, how like extraordinary. Like I felt it, took my destiny into my own hands, and actually went and made the change and became the change and guided that change and developed and grew and evolved, and then watched the collapse behind me. Woo! Man, that's satisfying. That is deeply satisfying. And look, and it's easier said than done. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times, like, there's so many things that come at you, that disrupt your life, change your life, like things that are unexpected, that you put that lens on, that should be a something that you get angry at, of like, how did this happen, and why am I in this position, that's on a smaller scale that you could have avoided just the same way. I think for me, it's about looking at all aspects of every part of my life on an ongoing basis and looking what could I potentially change, and to me it's not necessarily just about changing, for this is going to be a solution and be a much better circumstance in my life. It's oftentimes changing to just get away from something that's not as positive or drains energy from me. It's not necessarily about making better. It's just changing to get rid of something that's pulling you down. It is another aspect of continually being proactive for the things that you could change in your life, and we just have this tendency to ignore the winds of change, these super obvious things and that are coming down the line or that you need to do. And for me, another thing that I will often do is wait till the last minute, knowing a change is coming, but just let the change hit me and deal with it. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse, because it's like, now you're mad at yourself because you weren't, proactively trying to adjust for the change coming, and now you're living in the fire of it, and you're, completely upset. It's like when my son went to a new school, I had all this opportunity to adjust the schedule and deal with how we're going to get him to school and both kids to the school, and instead I stayed in my rhythm till it was like a week before the kids are going to school, and then boom, I'm in like utter chaos trying to figure it out when I had like 3 months to figure it out. And to me, like, that is just a small example of how something disrupting your rhythm can create a really big impact on your life that you could have done a lot to avoid it even happening in the first place, because you knew it was coming down the line, and rather than continue to stay focused on your current flow, and prepare for how to change your future flow, I just rode it right up to the edge. And it was, quite disappointing in the chaos, and upset my wife, and how I was, ultimately, getting frustrated with the amount of time and how difficult it was to push it into everything that we were doing. But, it's this idea that, when you look out at anything that you're doing inside your overall system, and when you begin to see like things that are inevitably changing, and that you've got to begin to get prepared for, and look out into the future, and begin working on what you're going to do to be prepared by the time that you get there, man, it just feels so much better when you're able to predict the change and then do the change with intention, because then it's satisfying. Then it feels like you took control of what was inevitably something that was going to be more chaotic, and you made it your own, and I think even for me, and a couple 5-6 years ago, like out of nowhere, DC went out of business. Like DC went out of business. It was like, what? Like I only knew what it was like to wear DC. It was a part of my identity in every last aspect of it. So it was like, it wasn't like I was thinking about like, oh, what are all the ways that I would, what would I wear if I didn't have to wear DC and have this brand partnership and deal that had been going on for 20 plus years, you know what I mean? And that was like this, like, for me, this big shift in way of thinking of like, and the way that I felt, when it was over. That was one that I didn't have control over. I couldn't see coming, and that I just had to take that hit. And for me, it's really funny, because again, when I started not wearing DC, it was so a part of my identity that I felt so strange being in Nikes and like not wearing logos anymore, especially, when I got onto ridiculousness and, walking on the stage and being like, feeling so like, who am I with this plain outfit on, and again, it's not like any of that was controllable, right? Like, but I certainly knew there was some potential of something like that happening, because I understood, the state of the business at that time. But what I was able to control from that point forward was, I looked at it as like, okay, this was forced change, and rather than readjust and try to do a deal with the people that buy the company out of bankruptcy and continue to be a part of it, I looked at it as this was an opportunity for me to evolve and change my entire aspect as it was related to just brand deals in general. It was sort of like my last brand that I had a brand partnership with that required all these sort of services from me, of photo shoots and signings and all these different things. And I, from that point forward, used this forced change as a catalyst to really understand and get deeper of like, I have just evolved and changed as a person to the point where I no longer wanted to be a brand ambassador type of individual, which then, basically, became, the reason that from that point forward, I just have never done another brand deal ever in my life. And by changing that and evolving forward, it now eliminated another aspect of my life where I was never, going and doing photo shoots and all this stuff just, sucked the life out of me. And this idea that now, I could finally put that aspect of my life behind me and move forward, was the good and bad of a forced change. You know what I mean? The forced change came in the way of unexpected, but the change with intent was that, like, from this point forward, I'm no longer going to be like do brand partnerships and be more of an ambassador that created content and shot that different stuff for brands, right? And if I was to do it, it would be for companies that I actually own, as opposed to brand partnerships, and even then, it would only be on a limited basis, to the chagrin of a lot of the partners that I have, who wish I was more of a brand ambassador at times. But look, I'm only using it more of an example of like, it's sometimes a forced change leads to the clarity for a more permanent change that you can guide and drive, that is part of your evolution, and that is important in leading you towards living that higher quality, more harmonious, high energy life that you're seeking. Because I just think the idea of choosing your own change and determining, what you want to see happen is that first step in creating your future and living that life with intention, and changing with intention guides you towards that better future. And it's in all aspects of life in an ongoing basis, and for me, even when I think about, switching up and optimizing different aspects of my life, whether that's, training program and, adding something new, like adding supplements to what I tracked each year, and then, using, blood data to validate, sort of taking all these new supplements and that being part of this new routine. Like, you're constantly proactively adding new things that are different and changes in your life that compound and lead to this more balanced and optimal version of you, is when change is good and change benefits you in the right way. It's when you just are like living a life where you continually don't listen to the signs, don't see the inevitable, and then you just continually get hammered by change and continually are upset. And I mean, you know what it is. Like, if you just keep, if you continually get hit by things that change and are always picking up the pieces over and over, like, and in this position of reactive change, you're going to go crazy. You're going to feel like you can't ever catch a break, and you're never going to gain control of your reality and ultimately your destiny, because you keep allowing the changing world and the things that change around you to dictate what direction and what things continue to happen in your life. And it's not really about like that stuff never happening, because it's always going to happen, right? And it's why they say change is inevitable. And really, our universe is just cooking. What is it doing? It's just constantly shaping and evolving and gathering up stars around black holes and forming a galaxy and running a galaxy into each other. And over billions of years, it's constantly changing and expanding. We went from dinosaurs to rockets hitting or asteroids blowing us apart. And the next thing you know, we got all types of life forms. Then we got us, and we're constantly changing. And now we're shooting rockets to Mars and doing all types of weird stuff. It's that sort of continual change and evolution of everything happening around you is going down no matter what. And seeing when it's going to affect you and proactively being able to look out and understand where it can affect you, and then creating the change yourself to create a new direction in your life, in whatever circumstance that you have, like that is where change can be incredibly satisfying and be thoughtful and be meaningful and ultimately become an important part of your life. At the end of the day, changing with intention and whether that is a job, a workout routine, a relationship, the way you communicate, the way you deal with yourself, the way that you live your life, all of these things require change in order to grow. Like, you have to change in order to grow and become better. And changing with intention is when you get to guide that growth and control it in a way that it can proactively guide you to the best version of yourself, rather than continually being reactive to the world and the change that is happening around you. Because if you do that, change will not be satisfying. It will be utterly and completely painful. And trust me, you don't want that. You want it to be where, despite the chaos of the world, you want to be able to take as much control as you can and guide yourself, which in turn will guide the world around you in a more consistent way that allows you to change and evolve with intention into the life and the person that you want to be. All right, that's it. That's my rant on change. I think if we go back and go through this full episode and we just mapped out how many times did he say change in this episode, I believe I said it 242 times. So if somebody could go through and count it and hit me in the comments when this episode drops to see how many times I said change, because I do believe I said change now, 244. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate you all always. You know what it is. Everything we're doing at the Deer Deck Machine at deerdeckmachine.com. Come join us. Become a machinist. Check out what we're doing with the Do or Die Visionary Foundation. Support all of our companies and our great founders. Because they're just do or diers with that vision and that eyes on the prize, and they got great plans and great strategies. And they got that grit to make it happen. Until next time, see it, believe it, do it.